regular meeting of the mayor and the city council, city of Boyle, Louisiana, days Wednesday, December 8th, 2021, at 5:30 p.m. City council chambers, third floor, Port Allen City Hall. Each person must decide before entering the chamber which agenda item they wish to comment on. If they are not seated in the chamber when the item is heard, it will be notified by an officer to enter the council chambers to address that agenda item. Agenda, please silence all electronic devices. Agenda item 1, call to order. Agenda item 2, stand for the pledge. Mr. Durbin, can you lead the pledge?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Roll call. Agenda item 3, roll call.
You want to do the main roll call?
No, we just got the vote.
Okay, we're doing the main roll call. Mr. Brown?
Here.
Ms. Gordon?
Here.
Mr. Hubble?
Here.
Ms. Lacy? Present. Mr. Riviere?
Here.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand we want to amend the agenda.
Council members, staff is making a request to amend the agenda for consideration of a request from a local business to extend the hours that alcohol can be sold on Sunday, December 12th, 2021 until midnight. It coincides with the Court Street Christmas Festival, and they're hosting a party for another local business as well. So the request is right now is just to amend the agenda so the council can consider this item. And we would need unanimous consent of the council to amend the agenda to add this as a discussion, as a topic. December 19th.
So, I was just about to say.
Ms. Lacy?
Oh, I said 12, December 19th, I'm sorry.
We did a motion by Ms. Lacy. You have a second? We did second.
Okay, I got a motion by Councilwoman Lacy, second by Councilman Riviere. Any objections? Hearing none? Vote.
I think we have a okay.
They got the show.
Okay.
It's not on our screen. No.
Motion passes.
Okay.
We gonna make this agenda,
We never voted.
I thought it showed we approved.
So then we are voting. That was a motion.
Yeah, we didn't have showed it on our
It's
screen.
not coming up.
But we never voted, so how it showed up on there?
That was me, not
You didn't
vote.
vote. Okay.
Just automatically assume everybody said yes.
Right. Okay, we can take a break. Okay. Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Are we voting on the motion?
Yes.
That's a motion to amend the agenda. We're gonna go verbal.
Okay, Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Gordon?
Ms. Gordon, yes.
Mr. Hubble?
Yes.
Ms. Lacy?
Yes.
Mr. Riviere?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
And that's agenda number, item number,
We can put it, we can take it after the approval of the minutes. Or no, let's make that, let's make it 5A.
5A. Okay, you should approve the minutes. I'm still trying to get the vote.
Agenda item 4, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting on November the 10th, 2021.
I'll make the motion, but do I,
Ms. Gordon, second.
Got a motion by Councilman Riviere, second by Councilwoman Gordon. Any objection? Hearing none?
Okay, Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. Hubble?
Yes.
Ms. Lacy?
Yes.
Mr. Riviere?
Yes.
Agenda item 5,
It comes up.
So this activates, what's activated for the vote?
No, it's supposed to be touchscreen.
Okay.
We'll go back to it one time before.
All right.
agenda item 5, public comments. Comments from the public are allowed in accordance with the Louisiana Revised Statute 42:11, section 2 through 34, Pacific, limited to agenda items to be considered during the meeting. 3 minutes per person and 15 minutes per topic. No one signed up. Agenda item 5A, consider an item request to extend the hours of Jack's Bar on December 19th. Ms. Jill Sire, come forward. Council, Ms. Sire submitted a letter to me, and Marie. The letter says, "Dear Mayor Lee, we would like to request extended hours until midnight on Sunday, December 19th, 2021. This is the weekend of the 4th Street Christmas Festival, and we have also been asked to host a Christmas party for our local business. We will serve alcohol during these hours, but only to those who have valid ID. We think the two local businesses supporting each other is good for the city of Port Allen, and respectfully request that we can continue to foster these relationships. Thank you for your consideration of this request. Sincerely, Jill Sire, Jack's Place." And this was submitted on December the 6th. Ms. Sire is here to speak on this item.
I think my request says it all. We just have been asked to stay open a little later. Normally, the council gives us permission to stay open a little later when there's hopefully another Super Bowl or Mardi Gras, or if it happens to fall on a Sunday, that's a regularly scheduled event. This December 19th is not a regularly scheduled event, so we're asking for special consideration.
Ms. Is it okay if I ask who's the, local businesses you hosting the party?
Kuyon's.
Kuyon, okay.
And council, essentially, if the pleasure of the council is to grant the request, what we'd basically be asking is that the amendment, the ordinance be, suspended for, until, midnight on the day in question.
So another organization could piggyback off that as well?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. They just want
Yeah,
to
that's
just
why
her.
they extended to other.
The ordinance would essentially be suspended for that particular, for what, we can do it for a pretty narrow time period, so,
But just on that day?
just on that day, just on that day, and for the specific time period that a suspension of the ordinance would be needed.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Gordon made the motion. Mr. Riviere seconded.
I second.
No, Riviere seconded. Let's take a vote.
Press the buttons.
It's not, the buttons aren't.
The buttons are,
All right.
you gotta,
So we're gonna take a vote?
You have to put it on the screen? Or we gonna do verbal?
Yeah, we're gonna take a verbal vote, because we just got a snafu here. Mr. Brown?
Yes?
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. Hubble?
Yes.
Ms. Lacy?
Yes.
Mr. Riviere?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, Rose, who first, who second?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's, Ms. Gordon made the motion and Mr. Riviere seconded. I got to go back and watch. Go to six.
No, it's supposed to change automatically.
Agenda item 6, consider police department's request for a step increase for Riviere Smith for step 112, grade E, to step 112, grade H. Chief Hicks.
Good evening, how y'all doing? Steve.
Good.
Last week, Council Mayor, I brought to y'all attention about wanting to give, Detective Smith, a step increase. Like I said in last week's, council meeting, Detective Smith is a very vital, part of my department. He does a lot. He has a tremendous amount of workload on him. During his time, he enjoys his time working with the department, with the community. He checks all the boxes off. He's determined to find out what's going on. He puts his feet to the ground, his head to the brick, and I think he's well deserving of this rate.
And I have the pleasure of reading the email that came across, and, it was very impressive of the work that, Detective Smith has done. I appreciate everything that he's done, and, especially his, fight against crime with juvenile. So I do appreciate that.
What they put in,
That's
what
what
I
I
say. I think it has something to do with school. It was moved by Mr. Gordon, second by Mr. Brown. It was moved by Ms. Gordon, second by Mr. Brown.
Okay, excuse me, council, this system is not working the way it is, so you got to verbally do your
Motion.
motion, yes.
This one was moved by Mr. Gordon, second by Mr. Brown on this one.
Who's that?
Moved by Ms. Gordon, second by Mr. Brown.
It's not on your screen? No?
No, it's not.
It's just on our screen.
It's on mine, it's on ours.
Yeah, but it's not on here.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it.
Okay, I got a motion by, Councilwoman Gordon, second by Councilman Brown. Any objections? Hearing none?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Gordon?
Yes.
Mr. Hubble?
Yes.
Ms. Lacy?
Yes.
Mr. Riviere?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Agenda item 7, consider salary increase for Brianna Jones, Assistant Chief Financial Officer from step grade 120A to 120B upon completion of a 6-month probationary period. And council, Ms. Brown was hired in April of 19th of this year. The probationary period ended October 19th of this year.
Is this the salary that was discussed when she was hired, or what?
This is the salary that I placed her in, yes, ma'am.
In the, regular meeting, well, the council voted on February 10th when she was hired at a grade 122 step A. I'm a little confused why we're going to 120.
That's because she was a trainee, and I put her in that 120 slot until she gets confirmed. And then when she is confirmed, then she will move to the 122 slot.
Okay, well, this is saying to 120B, it's not saying 122.
Well, she's not confirmed this time. She's still on the training. All it is a probationary period. She's still got a ways to go.
So you said she would pay more?
Well, that's what the minute said, that's what the council voted on February 10th was 122 step A. Nothing was said about this. So I'm a little confused on that.
I'm asking a question.
I mean, this
Hmm?
protocol is,
Yes, some more.
This is more.
after they finish the
So
probation
what, do we
period,
go by what we
then
voted
they'll
on?
move to the next step.
On this step, or what?
And we have,
That's what she voted on.
and the reason why is because she didn't have knowledge of the info system, so that's why I got it in the training position, which is a 120.
And what
Well, so how long she have to stay in that training then?
Until it's verified that she's able to become an assistant CFO.
I mean, you say that, she got recommended that everything was fine, so,
No, I just said that she completed her probationary period. I didn't say.
so is Audrey over her?
Yeah,
So what did Audrey say? Is she qualified to get the money that we promised her that she would get, or what?
you have to ask Ms. McKay.
I mean, you should have asked for that, bring this.
You asking me a question that somebody else needs.
Well, is Ms. McLean here that she can answer?
Yeah, she is.
Okay, we'll bring her up. You just trying to make sure you doing the right thing. That's all I'm just asking. You saying one side and we keep offering her something else, but we need to know what's the difference in. I mean, you shaking your head, but explain it to me.
I'm stretching my neck.
That's the problem. Y'all don't want to answer.
Audrey, back on February 10th, and by the way, in the minutes it said 1012 instead of 2021. But Ms. Jones, the council voted on a grade 122 step A at that time. So I'm just wondering, was that to be effective then? The 122 step A?
That's what all the previous individuals who held that position, that's the stepping grade that they had, and that's the stepping grade that the council approved.
So at that moment that that was voted on, it should have been a grade 122 step A.
It's certainly what I thought it was gonna be, and it's certainly what she thought it was gonna be.
So now we're going down to 120. So I'm just confused. I don't, maybe I just don't know.
You're not confused, Mr. Hubble. It's just like I said, when I hired her at 120 as a trainee because she didn't have the experience that it required her to be assistant CFO. Now, once she's complete her training, then she will move to the approved salary for assistant CFO.
So what
So
training
was
is
the
she going
typographical
through?
error, was it supposed to be 128 instead of 122? Could that possibly
No.
have been the case?
No.
Now, I hired her as a trainee,
At what grade?
128.
Did you tell the council about that? Because the council voted on 122.
For assistant CFO.
At
So it's-
122A, that's what the
That's what
council
the
voted
minutes
on.
state.
What did the minutes state? Did we hire her as a trainee or we hired her as an assistant?
Assistant.
The council voted on the position and the salary for assistant CFO. I put her in the training position until she can verify that she's able to take on that role to be assistant CFO. Once I get that information, then I will move her to that position that y'all approved, and that's the 122.
Now, my question is, you say until she proved that she's trained, so when would you know that she approved? If Ms. Audit gonna tell you, or you gonna train her yourself?
Supervisor is training right now.
So, Ms. Audit, you don't think she qualified training?
She was qualified to be 122 when she was hired, in my opinion.
What is the difference between, just percentage-wise, 122 and 120?
10%.
That's a substantial amount.
So when we hired her at a salary,
122.
That's what the minutes said.
yeah, I thought that's what she was getting anyway.
She was on probation.
Well, unfortunately, council, Ms. Jones isn't here. And speaking with Ms. Jones prior to this incident, she advised me that Ms. Audit was not going to approve her promotion, so,
Well, why wouldn't you promote her up?
That is absolutely incorrect.
so,
I never said such a thing to Ms. Jones or to the mayor.
Well, we're not gonna debate that because Ms. Jones is not here to verify that,
that's correct.
but, I just can't see her saying that she don't wanna approve her, but.
No, but what I'm telling the council is she was hired at 128, and she knew it when she got hired.
Not if you're in the minute for 122, Mayor. She wasn't hired at 128.
I did the paperwork on it, Ms. Gordon, and she
But
was
what did we
hired.
vote on?
You voted on the 122 for assistant chief financial officer.
That's
And
what.
But let me hush, cause I know all this here gonna be something against my son, so I'm gonna be quiet, cause I'm gonna have to fight for that after a while. I'm gonna be quiet, cause I know my son gonna be telling you don't. So,
Well, no, we voted on 122. That's what she should have been making, whatever that was. That's what she should have been making. If it was any other stipulations or anything to go along with it, we just should have been advised of that. We should have known that, you know, what was going on. Even if it was some mental discrepancy, her finish her training, that's fine. And then, but we still needed to know that because of the fact that we was under the premonitions that she was under 122.
so that means we gonna hold her back pay?
No, each.
What if she not here tonight?
Y'all was sent the same documentation I gave her, which stated what her salary was when she was hired. And then she was hired at 128. So it was accepted, and we moved on. And then, I had a conversation with her. She moved up to, she got a move to say raise from 128 to 120. And she still.
Give me the dollar amounts.
I don't have it off the top of my head, that's a 2% change. From A to
Roughly
B, that's a 2%
60,000.
difference.
So 60.
Well, I'm gonna say this here. Is this what the mayor say we gonna do? I don't agree with it, because that's not what we voted on. And she's not here, and we don't have the minutes. Is there any way we can get the minutes?
Mr. Hubble just said he had minutes,
I don't have a copy of
Oh,
them.
okay.
I wrote it down, but that's what it was. That was,
minutes are posted on the website.
yeah, the regular minutes,
Back in
March
February?
10th. The council voted on February 10th of 2012.
I think Lance is pulling.
Council, it's kind of going into the separate issue, though. You know, it's going into a question of whether it should be 120, 122. You could always still tonight go ahead and move her from the 120A to the 120B, and then, you know, further look into the matter of whether it's 120, 122.
And like I said, if it was some type of error and she was getting paid, it was at the 120, it's paid. And that was the pay, and we moved to 120B. We just wanna make sure we're clear, you know.
Well,
Because if it was some error, hey,
It wasn't ever, I informed her when she had
Lance,
interviews
something
with me.
said.
See it?
oh, there we go, right there.
Right here.
Wait, go down, I can see.
Scroll it down.
Scroll down, son.
Scroll it further.
The other way.
Other way.
Go up or down?
Go down.
See.
Is this it right here? Right
Yeah,
here?
there it is, right there.
Right here.
Read it.
The motion was made by Mr. Brown, seconded by Mrs. Gordon to approve orders number 2 of 2021, amending the current fiscal year 2020-2021 budget of the City of Port Allen General Fund and Water and Gas Fund budgets to cover the cost of the newly approved position of Assistant Chief Financial Officer at 122 Step 8 per City Council approval on February 10th, 2021.
They approved.
This is when they created the position. This is in March.
That was when the amount of money was approved in the budget adjustment that you voted on
So you go to the next.
for that position at that number.
But in
In
fact.
April
Okay,
is when she was actually
in April,
hired.
let me clarify some things if I may. We had a meeting with Ms. Jones.
In fact, she wasn't making that, right? That's my
Well,
question.
I just read the minutes from April, and I'll publish those minutes in a moment, but just to clarify what occurred, it was the mayor's understanding that 122 Step 8 was the position that the job was created at, meaning he can exceed that salary. He offered her the job at 128, which is in the minutes for April. She accepted. He's making a proposition today to promote her to 120B. Now, what I want to do with the remaining facts is up to y'all. But that is the gist of the conversation that we had about this. Now, I can tell you Ms. Jones was not thrilled about it, she's not happy about it, and she wants the 122A.
So why
Full
would,
disclosure. But just for clarification, he offered her the job at 128. And if you go to these minutes from April, it says A motion was made by Mr. Brown and seconded by Mrs. Gordon to hire Ms. Brianna Jones for the position of Assistant Chief Financial Officer at step 120, grade A. A roll call resulted as follows. So when she was hired in the meeting in April, it was at 120A, which does not exceed 122B, A. And that was the understanding of his authority as mayor.
So in February, when we voted 121, that didn't mean anything?
That created the position and set a ceiling. It didn't set a floor. He can't exceed what you set a position at, but he can go under. And if the person accepts, that's a negotiation between the candidate and the organization. But he couldn't go to 122B, in other words, because you created the position at 122A.
Okay, so I'm
And that's-
gonna hire you to potentially make 122A, step A. But right now, you have to go through a process, a training process, and through these processes, you're gonna go from step to step before you get to this 122A.
That's the mayor's position.
Well, that's the way it
That should
explained
have
it to
been
her?
clarified, just like that.
Well,
Was it explained to her that way?
I wasn't in that meeting, but I would defer to bring her in at the next opportunity. No, I wasn't in the meeting when she was hired. I was not, I was out that day, so. I don't know what she was told, other than what's in these minutes, what was presented to the council to be voted on in April.
She understood it when she was hired, she understood it to go just like that.
I'm not gonna say she understood it.
I don't think
I'm
she
gonna say
understood.
that
I don't think so either.
she was under the impression that she was coming in at 122A.
Right.
Marvin, could you just step back up, please?
That's full disclosure, nobody had nothing to hide about it. The facts are there.
Even with her
I'm
understanding,
doing.
maybe some type of miscommunication there, how have her work performance been?
Well, she came to work for us in April and didn't receive a working computer until sometime in September. She still doesn't have a printer, so, and she works on a floor higher than me, so that's really difficult to monitor, and it's really inefficient, but as best I can tell, the things that I have given her, the documents and the spreadsheets and the things that she has helped me with the audit, she has done those well.
Yeah, that's what I want to know, her work
Yes, ma'am.
performance, not her.
So do you think she's qualified for her?
I thought she was
step up?
qualified for that in April, I just answered that earlier.
I know, but I'm asking you again.
Okay. That decision
Clarify.
wasn't mine. I was in the meeting for the interview. Mr. Joseph did tell her, because she asked specifically what the pay was. Mr. Joseph told her mid-60s, which is the number for 122.
And at that time, I had not had any conversations with the mayor about what he intended to start off at. That was in the interview. That was before he offered her the position. I was not, and I communicated to her what the facts were. The job was created at 122A, which pays about $65,000. And I was not in the meeting when the job was actually offered to her directly. That was in the interview, and that was what I had at that time. So, which I thought I relayed quite effectively.
This was a protocol, Audrey, you had to go through a training period?
Ma'am?
You went through a training period?
No, ma'am. I was hired at 124J, and I, on October the 1st, 2011, started making 124J. Don't make much more than that now, but.
So are we voting? I mean.
So what is the training? No one know what the training is?
She's supposed to be trained in doing all the things that I do. And if it worked a little bit more efficiently than it does, that could probably happen, but. as
So
it
would
is
you
right now-
recommend her to be promoted up?
Right.
Yeah,
Because she should have gotten in the beginning, she certainly should be getting it now.
okay.
I guess what the council's action is to gain, if you were to leave this office today, would she be able to take over your role with no problem?
No.
No, what I'm
And that's not
asking is,
based on her
or
pay.
you think she qualified
That's
to get
still
what
not
she's
based on her
supposed to
pay.
be getting?
Ma'am?
That's my question.
I'm sorry.
Is she do you think that she's qualified to get the pay raise of 121 now? Now, I'm not worried about what she can do when you leave. I wanna know if she deserved her raise up to what she's supposed to be
She was
getting.
qualified in April to receive it. She's qualified today.
That's what I wanna know.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not asking about if you leave here and go, whatever. I wanna know if she qualified for it now.
She was qualified in
Okay.
April, she's qualified now for that pay. Yes, ma'am.
In Mary, your opinion, you don't feel like she's at that step right now? You feel like she, 120 is,
Yeah, this is the first time I had a conversation with this thing concerning.
You should have talked to her before you
Only
told
thing
her.
I know is that Ms. McCain hadn't written up any deficiencies in reference to her training. So, that's all I can go on, is that she completed her probationary period at the time that was required, so she's entitled to, one-step increase. And that's what we're here to discuss, the one-step increase. If y'all wanted to discuss her moving up to 122, we can do that in another.
Well, no, Mayor, what we trying to say is, if we voted on this here and it's Alderman McCain's recommendation of her, why not communicate with Alderman McCain to find out where she needs to be? If you feel that she's qualified or not, if that's her calling to give us the answer or give you that answer. Or do that's something that you decide?
I move that, for point of order, I'd like to make a motion to approve of the 120B, we can discuss it later.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we
Y'all
approve
have
it.
more questions, ma'am?
Thank you.
So I,
Okay, Brandon moved to.
We already got a motion.
Okay, so we got Ms. Gordon and you moved and Mr. Brown second.
yeah, I said whatever, yeah.
Okay, I got a motion by Councilwoman Gordon, second by Councilman Brown. Any objections? Hearing none?
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Gordon,
Yes.
Mr. Hubble.
I'm gonna, make this statement on this because what we're doing right now is we're just saying that we're gonna give a 2% increase and we're satisfied with that.
I didn't say that.
No, we're not satisfied with it,
Well,
we
if
just
you're
need to
voting
do
for it,
something.
yes, you are.
If
So,
you don't, you not. So
the
just choose
thing
one.
about it is, and I'm just going by the minutes, it was stated 122, step A. Whatever the interview process was, if you're telling somebody that you're being interviewed that this is where you are, when they walk out that door, that's what they're taking with them. Now, they find out different. So, for me to say, this is okay at 2%, we still have 10% in the balance, my vote is no.
Okay, Ms. Lacy?
Yes, and my yes is because I see that the motion, was presented at the step 120 grade A. So obviously she was hired at that. No matter what we discussed or what would be your pay, I see that the motion came in, we all voted at the step 120 grade A. So at some point that was, I had to be identified. At some point that was agreed upon, I'm sorry, so.
Mr. Riviere?
And to echo what, Ms. Lacy is saying, the motion was made by Mr. Brown, seconded by Ms. Gordon to hire Ms. Brianna Jones at the position of Assistant Chief Financial Officer. So she was hired, we voted to hire her at
Right.
120. What we did the previous month was, I guess, set
The position.
Yeah.
So,
Getting it.
that's a convoluted way to vote yes.
Okay. Motion passed.
Thank you. Agenda item 8, consider the promotion of Capricia Carter from part-time to full-time utility clerk at grade 109C. Councilman Carter's actually received a notice. We had a former full-time employee that resigned. And Ms. Carter is a part-time utility clerk, and due to her being a part-time, I promoted her to a full-time clerk at grade 109C.
So, this isn't a position that needed to be advertised for, I know we have, specifically in office staff, where I can remember sitting in on interviews for both, it was like a 2-for-1, sitting on 2 interviews, and remember we hired 2 people, one part-time, and promoted somebody, so somebody who was currently working part-time. I thought this was something we'd have to advertise for.
Well,
That's how it's supposed to work.
well, we will advertise for the position vacated by
Right.
Ms. Porter as a part-time employee, so we will advertise for that position. But based on the fact that she does have the training and she does have the knowledge, she will be moving up into that full-time position. And as an administrator, I don't see the reason to advertise outside because of the fact that, not being fair to the people that's, request to be put in that position and they're not gonna be. So I promote from within first, and then we go outside if we want to get it right from within. And that's why we moved Ms. Porter to that full-time position as a utility clerk. And then we gonna advertise for her vacant position as a part-time office clerk.
But when we received the resignation of the former employee, that was an open position. I thought like full-time city, employment opportunity had to be advertised. I really did, because I do remember sitting in on interviews. It was a similar situation where we.
So you're saying that we can't promote within, like we can't move?
To me, yes, she is deserving, but I thought there was a certain protocol that we had to follow to, maybe Evan, can you shed a little light? I mean.
So, my understanding,
What's a Larson Act?
well, it's not really a Larson Act issue, it's more of your ordinances. Your ordinances do provide the requirement for advertising, and it makes no exception. Even if you're hiring a student worker, technically you would have to advertise that. It's my understanding that in the past, when you've had these situations where you have full-time employees and you have these part-time employees working in the same office or department, that maybe y'all have moved them up in the full-time position without advertising. Again, that's not necessarily specified in your ordinance. So, my recommendation would be, follow what y'all have always done in that type of situation. But if this is a type of situation where maybe you want to loosen the ordinance up for this type of situation where you have in-house people part-time in the same department that you now have a vacancy, let's amend the ordinances and create some exceptions for that. But, as written, no, the ordinance does not have any exceptions. So, in this type of situation, it creates an issue where you have a full-time vacancy. You get your notice of the vacancy, you go into a 3-week advertising period, you go into interviews, you fill your vacancy. Well, now you have another vacancy in your part-time position, so now you advertise that, you go through a 3-week advertisement period, you have interviews, you pick your person, and it takes you got 3 weeks of advertising, so you're looking at a minimum of 6 weeks advertising plus all the other time, basically just to get up to full speed. If you're comfortable with that, then, that's the process that your ordinances call for right now. But, that's kind of the issues in play when you have this type of situation. And it's a matter of, I suggest if y'all wanna go that way in the future, let's amend the ordinance to go that way. That, essentially, I understand it's kind of been done both ways maybe in the past.
I think it makes perfect sense for somebody who's been working in a part-time position and understand the work and the role and to be moved up to a full-time position. It's kind of like deserving if she deserves it.
And that's a policy type issue. I don't get into the policy type arguments. Perfectly logical explanation there, but what I'm saying is, your ordinance technically does not provide for that. It doesn't make any type of difference. It doesn't consider the advertising. It doesn't consider the domino effect in certain situations. And, it's just a matter of how y'all want to address that, now and in the future.
As the ordinance is written now, it sounds as though we are required to advertise. And again, I am for hiring from within and promoting from within.
another thing too, it eliminates, because if you go through that process, you got to advertise for 3 months, then you got to interview, and that's another month, then you got to bring it back before the council. Then if she's selected, now you got to advertise for her position, which is the part-time position, which we trying to do today. And that's another 3 months. So you're talking about 4 months that she's gonna be out of it, or
3 weeks.
no, total 4 months, because you got that. If once she gets selected for that first full-time position, now you advertise for her position. So now you gotta go for another 3 months, 3 weeks
Yes.
of advertising, and then another interview process.
How many people do we have now?
2 right now.
Two
One full,
full-time?
One full and one part.
Yeah, 1 full, 1 part-time.
I move.
Second.
I got a motion by Councilwoman Lacy, second by Councilman Brown.
And we're moving to authorize the promotion.
Can we do it? Make sure we can do it.
So, I mean, the remedy, if an employee is technically hired in violation of the advertising, it says that the employee is subject to termination by a majority vote of the city council. But essentially, the city council is making a determination tonight on whether it wants to hire, so, you know, really it's, at the end of the day, it all comes back to the council in this.
You got Lacy and Brown.
If you want the advertisement, you would have to vote no tonight. If you're okay with this promotion from within tonight, you would vote yes.
CAO, what you gotta say?
I'm sorry?
What you gotta say? Your input is always.
Well, I would think that, I agree with the mayor that it's somewhat pointless to go through an advertising process when you already have the candidate that you want. It's not fair to the applicants, it's not fair to their candidate. The ordinance speaks for itself, but I will say that our current staffing is 2 full-time and 1 part-time person in that office. We are now down to 1 full-time and 1 part-time person who has stepped up to fill in the gaps where the full-time person that has left created. So, I mean, she's trained, she's prepared, she's went above and beyond to stay late on a whim, because a lot of times we get last-minute notices. People leave. She currently works until 2 p.m. So if someone takes sick during the day, sometimes it leaves us, you know, with 1 person to cover that office, and it's not that easy to do. So.
And she's usually that person.
Well, she's the only person. There's only 3 people that work in that office. If we don't have her, we have to pull someone from the 2nd floor to bring down. So, I mean, you know, having someone who's already up to speed is invaluable, considering the time of year that it is and the busyness. We're not only doing regular utility payments, we're doing tax payments. We have a lot of volume right now. So it's you know, if I would at least request that some consideration be made to increase her hours that she's available to work. If you're not gonna make her full-time, then I'm limited in what I can schedule her to do as a part-time employee, and I just don't have the coverage. So, that's the state of affairs at this point in time. And keep in mind, the resignation we received was with no notice. You know, it was like, hey.
No 2 weeks.
Right, it was like, I'm done. So it did put us in sort of a box.
Okay.
So if we do, she part-time or temporary basis, would that change anything?
Oh, she's full-time now.
Well, from
She's
part-time
part-time right
to temporary
now.
full-time, is that a possibility, like we do the house,
You could
summer workers?
authorize the mayor to put her full-time and then also on a temporary basis and authorize advertising?
Yeah, like would
I
that
don't want to work temporary
would
full-time.
that eliminate the issue that my colleagues have?
So the issue is that, you know, as your ordinance is written, you know, your ordinance doesn't make any exception for any open position. So technically you have an open position. So your ordinance would require you to at least go into a 3-week advertising period, to properly fill it. But the remedy is that the council, you know, can get rid of somebody that's hired improperly. But essentially, the mayor has put the ball in your court by, you know, bringing this matter before the council and saying, you know, we're basically requesting authority to go ahead and put her in a full-time position. To answer your question, you know, yes, you could just authorize her to go from a part-time to basically increase her hours for the next few months until you can go through a full advertising period for that vacant position. That is an option.
But at the end of the day, still come back in front of us.
Well, at the end of the day, you know, if you know who your candidate is, you know, if you have your person, then, you know, you really.
Next person up.
But they
You're
always-
going through the process, but, yeah, it's a process essentially with
It's a waste of time.
a predetermined result.
Correct.
Yeah, it'd be different if you were casting a net on the outside, you know, if you had no idea, there was no internal candidate here, nobody with experience, and, you know, you were going on the streets to get somebody, you don't know what you're getting, you just gotta cast a net and see what you get in, but in this type of situation, you know, it seems like, you know, you had these part-time people here for a reason.
You started that on the floor, did you?
Ma'am?
No, we didn't.
We got a motion and a second.
Okay, yeah, we have a motion, Ms.
Well,
That's
Dawson.
from the last,
At this point, it's pretty obvious we need to do some modifications to that ordinance.
So we can certainly, take a look at it and come up with some, you know, possible revisions, to the ordinance that could maybe give us a little bit more wiggle room in the future, you know, in these situations where we have a part-time staff here in that very office, you know, that maybe just give some discretion to promote within.
And also, when we have situations like this, do the mayor have to bring it to the board? I mean, he couldn't have just done this on his own? He couldn't have just promoted her and
The
said,
mayor,
"Hey,
so that
she's been part-time, I'm gonna move for the full-time, for a
You're-
new
you're-
hire, I'm gonna bring them to the board."
Your ordinance does not have any wiggle room, it just says a open position, a vacant position, and it has a process. And it doesn't, again, technically, even if you're student worker positions, that would technically apply to that, you know, so it's, no, that there's,
What would be considered an emergency? I thought he would have some leeway if it's, you know, we're in need.
well, in an emergency type situation, basically, he could put somebody in there as like a temporary basis, if you will, but I mean, that's not officially filling the job, it's still, so, you know, it would still eventually have to come back to the council for final, you know, definitive action on.
But, I mean, but this isn't anything new, this isn't anything we haven't seen before, this has happened before, where they had to promote within because the position was vacant, and this is the first time that this ever occurred.
That's my understanding.
Yes, sir.
We have a motion on the floor, Mayor.
That's it.
Ms. Lacy and Mr. Brown.
Okay, I got a motion by Ms. Councilwoman Lacy, second by Councilman Brown. Any objections? Hearing none.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Gordon,
yes.
Mr. Hubble,
No.
Ms. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Riviere.
No,
Motion passed.
Thank you. Agenda item 9, consider authorizing the mayor to advertise for a part-time office clerk position in the utility fund.
I move.
Motion by Councilman Brown, second by Councilwoman Lacy. Any objections? Hearing none.
Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Gordon,
Yes.
Mr. Hubble,
No.
Ms. Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Riviere.
yes.
Okay, motion passed.
Mr. Hubble, you don't want to do? To advertise for a part-time position? You want us to leave it, you want us to leave
This
it?
is in direct contrast to item number 8. According to Emmett, you have an ordinance on the board. If we want to change it, that's fine. I'm good with that. But at this point, it's not changed.
But this process is the correct process of part-time advertising.
I think it's, at some point in time, the city's gonna have to look at their number of people they hire. With a decrease in population, I don't see where your workload is increasing, so I just stand to have to look into that.
All right. Agenda item 10. Discuss cooperative endeavor agreement for building project plan review, inspections, and condemnation report services. Mr. Sheriff?
As you know, we presented last week at the committee meeting 2 options for our building project inspections, plan review, and also condemnation services offered by one vendor. I have representatives from both here who would like to hear them present once more. We have Mr. Durbin from West Adams Parish and 2 representatives from yes. So I will turn the floor to Mr. Durbin.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I know there were some questions this week. I tried to answer as many of those as I could. I'll be very brief because I know you have had a long meeting so far this evening. It's been our pleasure and privilege to serve you, for the past 5 or so years. We hope we've done a good job for you. We'd like to continue to do that job. We think it serves the constituents, it serves the contractors. If you build a house in Brewley, if you build a house in Addis, if you build a house in Port Allen, you build a house in the parish, you're going to be subject to the same reviews and permitting processes. And we feel like that's an efficiency that the citizens can rely on. That's an efficiency that the contractors can rely on. We're also one phone call away. We're just a couple blocks down the road. If you have any problems from the service we're providing, by all means, please call your council member, call me, call Parish President Berthelot, and we'll try to get those problems fixed. So it's been our pleasure and privilege to serve you. We'd like to continue to do so in the name of efficiency for the citizens and businesses. We hope that our contract is very simple. We know that the terms are a little bit different. I know change is difficult. We're a changing parish. We're a growing parish. We're changing municipalities, and so unfortunately we're just going through some changes right now. But would love to continue to serve you. I'll be happy to answer any questions that may still be remaining, and would appreciate the opportunity to continue to do business with you guys. Thank you so much.
Well, from my understanding, from later tonight, we may not be a growing parish, but,
The parish is growing. There's just shifts in where those populations are moving. Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask this. If we're in an agreement and you appreciate the business that the city and the parish have been doing, why can't we keep it like it is? Why can't we keep everything just like it is?
Unfortunately, when we first set this up, and let me just back up a few steps. When Mr. Berthelot first ran many years ago, it's been a while now, he heard from the contractors the need for consistency throughout the parish. That was one of the things he heard on the campaign trail. Why, when we build a house in Brewley, we have to do it one way. When we build a house in Port Allen or Addis, it's done a different way. Mr. Berthelot saw the need years ago to put a consistent permitting and inspection process in place. Hurricane Katrina, we go back several hurricanes ago, accelerated the need for that. That's when the state mandated permits and inspections for every jurisdiction in the state of Louisiana. You had to have certified inspectors. You had to require permits. We now have a uniform construction code. When we first set up these arrangements, we just did inspections. That's it. That's what we thought we were going to do. The fact of the matter is, inspections and permits are kind of inseparable. If there's any type of miscommunication, even if it's minor, it throws a monkey wrench to the whole system. It causes inefficiencies. It causes inconsistencies. So we met with the mayors of all the municipalities about 1.5 years ago to talk about what we thought were some communication issues. And we said there were several routes to do it. We could either try to micromanage these miscommunication issues, or we could possibly just turn over the permitting to the parish. That's what we're asking to do. We're asking to actually take over the permitting itself, with the exception of the permit intake form, which is what the town of Brewley wanted to do also. And so we're just asking to make that one seamless process from the time the applicant comes in to the time we issue final power on the building, have one seamless process and eliminate some of these communication issues. So that's the ask, and that's what the other jurisdictions have agreed to.
So we have a high volume of communication issues, you would say?
I wouldn't say high volume, but when somebody's trying to build a house or a business, and there's even a small communication issue, that's a big deal to that permit applicant. They've got construction loans that they've taken out. They've got contractors ready to go, ready to build. If there's any type of communication issue, I would say it's an inconvenience to the applicant.
I understand this probability, but, I mean, we would have to have some validity. We have to have something that says, hey, we have had that happen, some high volume miscommunications that would make us say, okay, we'll move on and allow you all to just take it over at the agreement, the 75 to 25. But I think we could keep it at the 50-50 and work it like it's been working. Like, because now you have lit competition coming in. So you have to even consider that. How important it is to continue your business with the city.
It's definitely not a moneymaker for the parish. It's a service that we provide for the citizens, but we don't work for free. And you guys don't, your staff doesn't work for free. So we have to cover our basic costs.
Well, the information Mr. Durbin's department had sent, I guess each of the council members got it. If money-wise, I think it comes out to $1,725 and fewer dollars that we would take in as far as the inspection, if you add all the numbers up that.
They just cut everything we get in half, basically. I mean, go down from 50 to 25, just cut it in half.
And it was like $3,500 in fees in the city, within the city of Port Allen. You cut that in half to 17 and some change. So, there's something to be said about consistency when somebody comes to Port Allen. We always, and look, I've only built one house. You don't wanna have to keep going here, going there, doing this, doing that. And that's just building a house. I can't imagine a business, a commercial or some kind of industrial.
So you're saying the system we have in place right now,
It's pretty seamless for, but, and on top of that, we've always had to me, I know I had a great working relationship with parish government. And for years, y'all did just condemnation things for us, which was above and beyond, but y'all did them for us at no charge. How many projects have there been where, joint projects where the parish kicks in or picks up 80% or 80% of the cost? Just ask the city to kick in 20%. It's been a great working relationship for us, and I don't turn my back on that. And it's just, and I'm sure the other company, I'm sure they do good work. My oldest daughter lives in Central. Central's a fine community. I don't doubt that they do good work. When you have it right here at your back door, and the relationship has been good for all these years. To me, that means a lot. So.
and I mean, I do believe a lot of things that the parish does, they do some complimentary work for the city. But we won. We should be like one. I don't know if sometimes people miss that. Like the parish should help the city. Like that's how it should go.
And I think my biggest concern is we're not a city parish as East Baton Rouge. We gave away I'm not gonna say we gave away, but the fire department levels. There's always rumors that the police department is want to merge. So just for us to continue to relinquish everything, Parks and Recreation was gone. So I mean, I in a sense, Port Allen, I would like to just keep our independence at the end of the day.
I respect that.
See, I can speak on Park and Recreation, the city didn't want anything to do with
That was
Park and
before our
Recreation.
time, and I get that.
It
but that
wasn't
was
that the parish taking it away, the city didn't want it anymore.
That was back then. That was before our time. This new time. So I just think we should definitely do as much as we can to be able to represent our.
I respect that. My only response to that would be, you do realize some economies of scale, some cost savings. If we have certified and qualified people that we're paying salaries and benefits for, we're paying all their training, to rely on the parish, I wouldn't look at that as you're relinquishing your independence. It is a partnership, and I would hope you would take advantage of those It's called an economy of scale,
A
basically.
partnership will have more say on what we're receiving. From my understanding, we're just flat out getting that rate that we was told, and that was it. So a partnership is 50-50 with what it is now, in my opinion. So I get that.
Yeah, yes, sir. What we've been doing, we feel, is, we've probably been providing about 75% of the work and asking for 50% of the cost split. Now we're proposing to do 90% of the work and asking for a 75% of the cost split.
So you said you guys was doing 75% of the work and giving us 50%?
That, I'm throwing out approximate.
Okay.
I'm estimating. Yes, sir. But I do understand. We heard the same argument from Bruley about not wanting to quote unquote give up control, still wanting that face time with the citizen. I understand that and I respect that.
But to me, big picture, bottom line is we've already relinquished it. The city 40, 50 years ago had a a building inspector. We don't anymore. That the parish has been doing it for all these years. They're just wanting to take, and if we contract it out, we still relate.
What happened? Why y'all don't have a city inspector?
Correct.
What happened with the city inspector for the city?
Again, like to go with Brandon,
That was
way
twice
before
time.
my time.
Excuse me, could you tell the council on these new homes that's coming up, because I don't see any new homes on this, how much does average fee would be for the inspection?
I don't know if I completely understand the question, Mayor.
The new home subdivision is coming up,
The proposed homes on
Right.
Court Street,
for each one of those homes, how much, a complete inspection?
I don't know what fees y'all charge. I do know when my staff pulled the numbers from the past year, they noticed that the fees were a little low, based on what the parish charges. We would ask y'all to adopt our fees, that would be the ask. That would actually increase your revenue over what you're getting right now. We feel like your fees as they stand right now may be a little bit low when you look at the region.
What is the fee, did you know?
An average new home, an average 2,000 square foot home runs about $500 on flat permit fees, and then there's electrical, mechanical, and plumbing, which is usually another couple $100.
So that does.
So that's 75.
But the fees you have on the books right now are lower than that. I would,
When you're talking about, I assume you're talking about Court Street down there. And I think they threw out 300 homes in that development. The time that it's gonna take you to get 300 homes will probably be up to 10 years built. So, that is a one-time fee. It's not gonna be residual where you're gonna get it every year, but it's gonna take a number of years to build that out and if they get to that point of full occupancy in that development. So I don't think that's really an issue as far as I'm concerned, as far as that part like that.
Plus you got the development that came in this last council meeting with the, Brother Phillips property. And I'm supposed to be coming in at the same time.
So 50-50 is out the question.
if we're gonna do 90% of the work, would you take 50% of the fee and do 90%?
Continue to do what you've been doing. How about that?
Well, we think there's some communication issues that are causing some inefficiencies for the applicants.
But we could actually fix those issues in-house to make it more seamless though, correct? It's not like it's nothing that we can do to improve our current situation to make it better to work with you all if we partners, right?
I think there's probably some room to make some improvements. We would just like to see the same agreements that we have with other jurisdictions.
I just wanna know, this was, discussed back in what, 2020?
We originally, we had a summit with the 3 towns back in the summer of 2020, and we emailed out drafts of the agreement back in October of 2020.
So our administrator and you all could not come to an agreement on what to sell it for?
There's been
Before
discussions.
it came here?
There's
I mean, it
been-
seems like, the mayor should be presenting us what he want, or what's good for the city, instead of, we have to ask all these questions. What have y'all discussed? What did y'all talk about?
We did have some discussions, I think, and Mr. Lance can tell you, we had almost a 2-hour meeting, Mr. Lance, where we did kind
And
of.
y'all could come to an agreement?
I can address that if you like. Bottom line is, the parish approached us at the expiration of the previous cooperative endeavor agreement, and they presented a renewal, and the renewal had certain terms. We attempted to negotiate. We want to maintain the same process we have now, where all permits originate in our office, and we send our documentation out to the parish, and they perform the services that they've always performed. We were told that that wasn't an option, that the deal presented is take it or leave it. So we chose to find another alternative. That's the only option I have. If you tell me that you're not willing to entertain what I'm requesting, then I have no choice but to go to another source. So that's why we're here now. Now,
Well, that's authoritative.
I felt like we were partners. That is the regime I inherited. And for some reason or another, it's no longer being afforded to us. So I felt like my hands were tied.
Ms. Gordon, Mr. Joseph, if I can, I never use the words take it or leave it.
Well, I didn't say you did. I'm telling you that based on conversations that I have had in connection with this issue, I was told that the deal presented was the deal offered. Now, you can attest to the fact that we have had conversations back and forth about trying to reach some equitable resolution. We have, but that we were unsuccessful. So at the end of the day, we can, go back and forth on whatever conversations were held. But that's not really important. The reality is that
too much time.
the reality is that we had an agreement at 50-50. That agreement is no longer being afforded to us. The agreement that's been presented is what's presented. I tried to get better terms, but they weren't offered.
And let me share why we feel that this agreement is the best agreement. We never said take it or leave it. We feel that the agreement you have in front of you is the best agreement for two reasons. Number one, I think the amount of time and effort it would take to work out the communication issues, I don't think we have the time and the ability to break through on those issues. Secondly, it is the same agreement that all the other jurisdictions have agreed to. We would like to create some form of consistency, and we can't have 5 different jurisdictions with 5 different agreements and expect to have some form of consistency. So again, it's not that we're trying to be authoritative, we're trying to build efficiency. I'm sorry if you see it that way.
Okay, so
I'm sorry.
I understand what you're saying. Mayor, what is your take on this? You're mighty quiet, and let us know what you feel about it.
Well, my feelings is what Mr. Joseph has attempted to do, and we just explained that to you. But that's why we brought it to the councils.
I didn't just seek an alternative on a whim. I was told to do so.
I can tell you the mayor, Mr. Joseph, fought hard on y'all's behalf. I will say that.
It don't seem like y'all moving, though.
I mean,
Pardon?
Again, Ms. Lacy,
Let's keep the
Ms.
party.
Lacy, we can't have 5 different jurisdictions with 5 different agreements.
You could have.
No, that's not efficient.
You don't want it. You can have it, though.
Do you want to run a department with 5 different customers with 5 different agreements? You think that's how AT&T and Amazon, everybody's got different agreements that they have to keep up with? That's not
Everybody
efficient.
have different plans they have to work with, so you could do it. You could do whatever, we could do whatever we want.
It's not efficient, Ms. Lacy, I'm sorry. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
We have somebody else who wants to speak.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Matt Zieski. I'm the Director of City Services for Central. And this is Michelle. She was here last week. We're with IBTS. We do all city services in Central. We have a large building department with multiple building officials, and we're available for any questions you may have.
Yeah, and if I may, Matt,
Go ahead.
couple things real quick as I went back and reflected on the presentation last week. I just want to reiterate a couple points, I guess, of service that we can provide to your citizens and to the city itself. Our inspections typically are done within the next business day. If they get called in, typically we'll have an inspector out within 24 hours making that inspection. That communication is also provided back to the contractor, to the city, and to the homeowner. Plan reviews, our turnaround time for plan reviews are 5 days for residential properties. A little longer for commercial for obvious reasons. But when the inspections are done and they are passed, an inspection card is sent, also within 24 hours of that inspection approval, and it's sent again to the city and to the contractor and or homeowner if that's requested, so.
And if I may, if we were selected, we would implement a software solution to the city free of charge, and that would allow applicants to apply online for permits, and they can also apply for inspections, and they can receive text and email updates of what happened with the inspection as well. So that would be an added benefit that would be at no extra charge to Port Allen if we were selected.
And what's your fee?
So, these are local representatives I have been in conversation with, I guess, their boss, and the proposal is a 70-30 fee split. And Mr. Durbin is right, our current fees for building permits is substantially low. I did an analysis of most of the municipalities and organizations in the area, and we are the lowest when you compare to the parish, when you compare to East Baton Rouge Parish, compared to Central and Zachary. So we would have to raise our fees, and we have discussed what level we would need to raise our fees to. Currently, Central does $5 per thousand with some fluctuations depending on what work is involved, but that was put in place 15 years ago, so it's already outdated. We're discussing $6 a thousand at the moment, and that would involve basically mirroring the ordinances that are in place at some of these other jurisdictions. And let me just say, this is not personal. Mr. Durbin can tell you, our city attorney, when we set up the condemnation process that the parish assisted with us, we've had a good relationship with the parish, but I was told to find an alternative, and that's what I did. So here we are.
So you are 75-25.
70-30.
Oh, 70-30, and the parish, so it's just 5% different.
Not exactly. The parish's current fee structure is at $3 per thousand, with some fluctuations, I believe, based on what comes next. So typically this is a fluid situation where back in the day they used to charge a flat fee, right? And then they realized that they couldn't get the work done for the amount of revenue that was generated with that particular approach. So then they started doing a per thousand type of situation. Now you have what's basically a sliding scale type of process where up to $500,000 you might pay $6 a thousand. Over from $500,000 to $1 million, you might pay 7 or 10, or you might pay a $1,500 flat fee plus the difference between 5 and $1 million. It's going to take some, I guess, amendments to the ordinances to get the fee structure in place. But the fact of the matter is that the primary difference is that customers will still come to our office. The process will originate here, and then we will contract out for the same services we're contracting out before. In addition, this company is offering to do our condemnation reports at $250 flat fee, and the testimony required to conduct the hearing would be at $125 an hour, both of which are substantially lower than we pay now. So, like I said,
What do we pay now?
well, we pay roughly $225 an hour. And that averages between $1,000 and $1,200 for the initial inspections, and then however long it takes to conduct the council meeting with the hearing. So it gets somewhat expensive.
See, I feel, this is me talking, and I know y'all think because I served on the parish that I'm biased with the parish. But just like I told you earlier, when I left the parish, I didn't owe the parish nothing, the parish didn't owe me anything. So don't think because I served on the parish that that's where I go. I'm just trying to do what is right and best for everybody. If we're getting 70-30 from them and 75-25, I don't see a big difference. I mean, I really don't.
The difference?
The work, I mean, listen, let me talk. I'm gonna let you talk
as we go, so we can,
okay.
kind of.
I mean, we keep saying that we need a work relationship with the parish, and I don't think this is being totally fair with the parish, because if they've been doing all the work and we are still getting 50% of it, and if they're gonna do all the work and we don't have to do anything but collect out 25%, I mean, yeah.
Well, first of all,
Maybe I'm looking at something wrong.
first of all, I resent the implication that the parish is doing us a favor.
Well, I didn't think say he was doing us a
But
favor.
that's the context of the comment, and I've heard it throughout the night on this issue. We
I didn't
residents-
say that they was giving us a favor.
Let me finish. We are residents of the parish too, okay? So let's make that clear. It's the first thing. Second thing, the mayor did not want the process to originate outside of our offices. The parish that is the proposal they presented. We requested not to, the money fee split was the last of the issues, honestly. But the reality is that in addressing how the process proceeds through step by step, we would like the customers to start here, because we do have to keep track of this information, you see. And
But he offered that.
no, he offered an intake sheet, and what happens is that intake sheet is a bare bones minimum that they start here, and then they do the rest of the process at the parish. The actual application for the permit will have to be done in the parish offices, and then at the conclusion of that project, we're going to have to involve our staff to input that information into our system so that we can have it. Because in the event that a constituent comes back in here 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now and want to know what about the permitting for this particular house, we have to provide it. And can I finish? We still have to input that information. So the only difference, in my opinion, is that we're going to be doing it after the fact instead of in the beginning of the process. But we're going to have to take it, and we're going to have to have it. And we can't rely on the parish giving us access to their system.
Ms. Gordon,
So-
you have access to the whole system right now. It's a fully online system. It was created by the South Central Planning Development Commission. It's called My Permit Now. Anybody on this council can get log in and see every permit in a parish from start to finish. It's available right now.
Fair enough. However, these were some of the considerations that the mayor brought to my attention and instructed me to find an alternative.
And the only thing I'm saying is,
And look,
why can't we keep the system that was in place?
well, that's, when I say take it or leave it, that's what I was referring to. Okay, the fact that the proposal presented, we tried. He told you, we tried. We tried everything we could to come to some type of resolution that everybody could live with. And in the end, we could not reach an agreement that I felt didn't necessitate going to another third party to find an alternative to the arrangement.
So you're gonna
I
send
see
your
all this
citizens'
because-
dollars out of town,
Well-
instead of keeping your citizens' dollars right here in the parish.
Look, if y'all want to
Mr.
get into
Jones.
this type of conversation, we can, right?
Mr.
But the
Jones.
fact of the matter is that this was brought to us. We didn't request any changes, okay? And I'm just doing what I was told to do, you see? And I think part of the problem is that, part of the issue is to be able to come in this room and make certain assertions about sending dollars out of here,
That's
doing
exactly
this
what
and
you're
that.
gonna do if you're third party, Mr.
Yeah,
Joseph.
but guess
You're
what?
gonna send your citizens' dollars out of the parish instead of keeping it right
It
here in
doesn't
the
seem
parish.
that you value our citizens' dollars if you want to dictate every detail of the relationship.
Well, if
You want me to negotiate with a gun in my head? That's not a negotiation.
Let me
That's
say
a
this.
hostage situation.
Let me say this,
So-
this is a draft that we have all received. It's pure, clear cut and simple on there. If you deviate from it, then we cancel it. I don't know what else you could say. I don't believe, I know, it's a personal note, I've known Kevin for quite a while, and I'm sure he didn't say, and I know it's been said, he didn't say take it or leave it. But as far as this initiation form, this does give the city the face time with the constituent, and I'm going to agree with him when he says there should be consistencies across the parish, and he's dealing with the parish. He's not dealing with Riverville,
They are
Assumption,
actually, right?
Assumption. And let me just,
They are
you know,
dealing with the parish. They are, yeah, Rosedale and Maryland, so I mean, they
I
are dealing
mean-
with the parish.
I see that as a sign of trust, Mr. Brown, that other jurisdictions trust.
Much smaller parish, not doing, I mean, I'm not sure they value it, yeah, but I get it.
and the other thing I know there's been bantered back and forth about if they're doing 90% of the work. Well, I'm gonna tell you folks, if I was doing 90% of the work, I'd expect to be paid for it. Okay, simple, clear cut. You can't expect anything any different from them. But again, long story short, you have a draft here that's been presented. It is a document. If it is agreed upon, they deviate from it, you cancel it.
Right now, just like, it is a service, so it's not like we're obligated to go with the parish just because we're in the parish, because we deal with, other organizations, if I'm not mistaken, that are not parish-based, so I'll just like throw that out there too. No disrespect to the citizens that, hey, we just not keeping your money in-house.
But if we decide that we don't wanna stick with the parish, we can always,
We'll still have to go out, you know.
We would need to amend, and I have not went through this draft, but we just need to, okay, both the parish and the city reserve the right to withdraw from this agreement at any time with basic verbal or written notice to the other party for any reason whatsoever. So I mean, my interpretation of that is that the city, if it doesn't like the way that this is going, you could basically terminate your involvement in the intergovernmental service agreement.
I keep coming back along for years, as long as I've been on this board. And if we ever needed anything in the city from the parish, I have never, within 5 minutes, I can call the parish president, he's busy, he can call me back. The parish president we're talking about, that's a busy man.
Everybody has different relationships, you know. I
But we
respect
do,
it.
but that is a good, and it's not just me, I think if any of us would, reach out to President Berthelot, he would call any of us, it's not just me. Jason Manola, Philip Bergel, but then I come back to the 70-30, 75-25 split. Man, we're haggling over, maybe there's some hurt feelings involved, but we're haggling over just small time. And like Lance said earlier, the money was like the last thing to be discussed.
You wanna
So-
address, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No,
cut
you're
off, but
good.
You wanna address conversations you may have had with individuals that's not in the room? Because these discussions have been going on for quite some time. And I'm not, like I said, I don't have anything personal against anybody. All I'm saying is that based on the information presented to us, it was suggested that an alternative be explored. And that's what we did.
And I'm just looking at, back again, that
Yeah.
if we're in a working relationship and we're
Right.
partners, we should be able to work as partners, we should be able to negotiate. Like, we got one, proposal, and you just have to, basically, like Lance said, whether you wanna, y'all wanna admit to it or not, take it or leave it, either it's implied or
Yeah.
directed.
Right.
Like, okay, if it's not that, don't do any more work, let the process go as it is, and let's stay where we are.
Ms. Clerice, I could have started at 90% and went down to 75, if you wanted to see a quote-unquote negotiation. That's not
But
the
it
way
is
we
something about the
roll.
money, we can't say it's not nothing about the money, the
It
money
is
is
about
a
the money.
factor.
And we want the money to stay here in West Baton Rouge Parish and not go to Central.
And we want the process to stay here in this house and not go completely to the parish. So you could feel entitled to more money, let's just keep it like it is. Is that negotiable? Is that negotiable at all?
You know, doing the permits with the inspections is a major part of these new developments. We feel it's very important to do permits and inspections.
So you feel like the city is not capable of carrying on these responsibilities anymore?
No,
And you
ma'am.
feel like the
I did
parish
not
needs
say
to go
that.
on and step in and take more control over.
It's not about control, it's about providing efficiency to the citizens and businesses.
More services. Yes, okay, that's more services. That's better, a better term.
More services?
Yeah, provide
I think it's just a shift as to where the services are provided, having a one-stop shop instead of having to go to two different places.
Haven't it been going like that? I don't know.
I'm
So how
sorry,
long has it been going like that? How long has this process been going like that?
several years, five or more.
Okay.
You know, Miss Lacy, I just wanna say, you know, you can
I
call
mean,
me.
it's not personal, cause I have,
Miss Lacy, I've been trying to get in touch with you all week, and this is the first time I'm hearing questions from you.
I sent you my email. You
did
sent me what you wanted to send me.
Okay. You didn't ask these questions, you had all week to ask these questions. It's the first time I'm hearing.
Hey, was I obligated to ask them at a certain time?
I would
want to
have
ask them right now.
appreciated if you would have asked these
Well,
questions.
I just
before
thought of
tonight.
the ones I want to ask today.
What's the word? Well, council, I'm gonna say this, in no disrespect to the parish or to the people that's on this product, and it's what's best for the citizens, community. The problem that we had with the parish is mainly with the additional, the permits that were for, occupancy. That's what the problem came in. It wasn't undue development, because we hardly had any new development other than, Raising Cane in the city of Port Allen. And, you know, when you have somebody move out of a house, and then somebody else come in and requesting a permit to have the electricity turned on and then go through the proper procedure. That was the miscommunication between our clerks and the parish. It wasn't about a new development, which what we're getting ready to go into in the next year or so. This is where the money comes in at, because those developments, each one of those projects, just like Mr. Reverend said, is gonna run about $500 a piece. Okay, that's 250 split. Now we're talking about, 75% of that, and we only get 25%. So, I mean, that's the issue, but, when we say it's about money, yeah, it's about money, because we lose a lot of money. But we do a lot of work ourselves in-house, and that's before we even go to the parish, because it has to go to planning and zoning first, and then from that leg work, then it goes to the parish once the planning and zoning committee approve whatever needs to be approved. So it's a lot of work in the process before it gets to the permanent stage. But that's just residential. When it comes to commercial, that's another thing with the plan review, and also with the, we had an issue, in fact, we're getting sued right now because of drainage, floodplain, all that plays a big part in this.
So that's the parish fault?
No, all I'm saying is whoever takes over that, these are the things that we look at for help. Just like with the condemnation, we went to the parish, first they was doing it for free, then we had to start paying for it, so we went outside and outsourced that product. This company offered to do condemnations for us for $250. So, and $250 is a whole lot less than the $800 or so that we're paying right now to somebody outside, this agency to do that work. So these are the things that we're trying to address so that we can resolve it. And I think both of them are a good company. I mean, sure enough, the parish, we've been working on it for years. We have options. Now, whether the parish, if we choose this other company, whether the parish, and we don't like them, will the parish accept us later on? I don't know. But, I brought it to you, so we have to make a decision as to what y'all want, and then go ahead and move forward. So that's what we had on the table.
The way the agenda item is written, discuss cooperative endeavor agreement for building project, planning review inspections, and condemnation report services. If we stay with the parish, I mean, that last condemnation report services would be, that wouldn't be part of a cooperative endeavor agreement. But I'm prepared to make a motion, and I think y'all know what my vote would be, but how would I need the word we could omit the condemnation report services part of the agenda item?
Well,
I mean, it's been adequately presented to the council that that is not part of the parish's offering. So if your motion is to enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement with the parish for the review and inspections, you know, basically authorize the agreement as presented, then the motion would just be, you know, enter into a cooperative endeavor agreement with the parish.
That's the motion I'm prepared to make.
Do we have a cooperative?
I said cooperative endeavor agreement, they've got it titled a intergovernmental service agreement, but it's the same thing under law.
You have a motion by Mr. Riviere, second by Mr. Hubble.
I got a motion by Councilman Riviere, second by Councilman.
And to be clear, whatever agreement that y'all go with, I'm going to review it. So it may change slightly.
This is just
Oh,
a
they got
giving
it.
authority to enter
Yeah.
into it.
Any objection?
Yes.
Any objection?
I'm sorry. I'm thinking, do I object to moving forward with that motion, which I do. You know, I still think we should hold it out.
And Mayor, go to the audience too.
Does anybody in the audience wish to be heard on this agenda item? Hearing none? Vote.
Mr. Brown,
No?
Ms. Gordon,
Yes.
Mr. Hubble,
Yes.
Ms. Lacy,
No.
Mr. Riviere.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Agenda item 11. Mr. Grizzly, thank you for your service. Agenda item 11. Hear from representatives from Provost, Southern, Harper, and Alfred to review the fiscal year 2020-2021 financial audit report regarding the financial condition of the city of Port Allen. Mr. Alfred?
Hello, everyone. I think, we put at everybody's place, a packet of information. One, the thick one is the actual audit report, and included is a, what we call it, 114 letter to governance, which is you all, and also a little summary, since the report is now grown to about 90 pages. We try to keep it down, try to create a little summary for everyone. So I'm gonna be working from that, and we can go to any questions y'all have. First thing is communications with governance, and this is required for us to communicate with the board, people that are overseeing financial statements, to inform you that the financial statements prepared by the management with your oversight are presented fairly in all material respects. So that's, our audit doesn't relieve you of your responsibilities. So these are y'all's financial statements y'all are responsible for. The audit was conducted within the plan, scope, and timing that we agreed to. The engagement team was independent of everybody here with the city. There are some qualitative aspects. One thing, county policies, as they're listed in one of the financial statements. This year we had a new standard called GASB 84, which required some reporting for the judicial system, the fiduciary pages. For y'all, it's not very involved. It's on page 80 of the report. There's just some transfer between the judicial branches. The financial statements include significant estimates, among those is depreciation, our allowance for doubtful accounts, and the OPEB and pension liability estimates, which are actuarially performed. If we had any difficulties with, we would tell you about them. Attached to that letter are the journal entries we made in connection with the audit. Most of those are kind of things we do every year to kind of get the books to the GAAP basis. We had no disagreements with management. The mayor and the CFO gave us a representation that they agreed with everything. So there's no issues there. If y'all had any communications with other accounts about disclosures, we'd like we need to know about that, but we're not aware of any. And then we did have a few findings, which we'll go over later, but there were 3 control weakness findings and 1 compliance issue that we will discuss later. The next thing is the actual audit report. Again, this is management's responsibility for the financial statements. As auditors, our responsibility is to express an opinion. We do review your internal controls, not to give an opinion on them, but to plan our audit. So we don't opine on those. But we do opine on financial statements, and for these, we give a clean, unmodified opinion, so everything, we believe they're fairly stated in all material respects. There's included in the financial statements are required information, and that information is included, but we do not express an opinion on it. The supplemental information that's required, that's included, we do say that they're in relation to the audits as a whole, they're fairly stated. And then lastly, again, we'll report on what we found, if there are any control weaknesses or compliance issues. So if we go to page 4 of the handout, I have a little synopsis of 2-year comparison of the statement of position. And for this year, you'll see that your net position in total increased by right at $700,000. The governmental activities increased by 483, and the business activities increased by 200. If you look to the 4 right, you'll see that cash increased by 200,000. Our deferred outflows, which were related to the OPEB and the pension liabilities, actually decreased by 235. Liabilities decreased by 680, which is a nice going in the right direction. Debt's being paid off, and pension liabilities decreased a pretty good amount this year. So so the fund balance for the year is at $10 million, up from 9.4 last year. So again, $700,000 increase. Page 5 is we'll start the statement of changes in net position, and this is the revenue side. If again to the 4 right, you have a close to $475,000 increase in revenues over last year. I think when we discussed last year, everybody was worried about COVID, thinking that revenues would be down. So it's a good sign that revenues are up. Some of the bigger items are sales tax were up. If you see the 353 in intergovernmental revenues, that's mostly sales tax. Our revenues for the business type activities are up 296, and that's primarily 2 factors. One, our gas prices are up. So with that, so our costs go up a little bit, but also we increased the wastewater impact fees, I think, towards the end of last year, so that's had a full year, so we have an increase there. Flipping over to page 6, you have the expenses. Expenses for the let's look at excuse me, the governmental activities. Expenses decreased by $269,000. A big part of that decrease was our pension cost decreased by $345. So there was a natural increase, and that was primarily inflationary. It was about 2%, so it's kind of in line with inflation. So your increase in cost was okay there. And if you look at the business activities, our expenses increased by 128. Of that, 120 was our decrease in pension, and the rest was the increase in the gas prices. So for gas, we just make pretty much a flat margin on those. And if the price goes up, you get more revenue, you get more cost, kind of balances out at the end of the day. Page 7 kind of shows you the governmental asset. This year, last year we had put in progress the Whitehead Boulevard project, and it was actually finished when we moved it to complete. And we also had the Con Park and the Centennial Park, which was the larger addition. So it really was not a big acquisition year. Page 8 is the priority funds. We had the West Side Village project that was added this year. So as far as from prior years, the capital outlay was fairly low this year. Page 9 is your long-term liabilities. Again, our governmental activities, the liabilities increased for about $450,000. We paid down the revenue bond, and our pension liabilities decreased pretty substantially. On the business activity, about $150,000 decrease. Again, we paid down the bond and the pension liabilities. Okay, now let's talk about the internal control. What we have is, it goes through and we report on any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. A material weakness is something we think that could have a material impact on the financial statements. So if you flip over to page 11, we'll kind of have the summary of the findings. The first thing, last year we had an issue with the utility billings that was corrected this year, so that was no longer an issue. But we did have an issue with the approval of journal entries. Because of y'all's segregation of duty, y'all have such a small accounting office here, and there's still people involved. It's important that we get a timely review of journal entries, because most of the activities are confined within very few people. So you just want that oversight, and we want to make sure that's done on a timely basis. And the bank reconciliation issue is kind of the same thing, when we need to make sure those are approved on a timely basis and prepared on a timely basis. And this year, we had a little issue in that the reconciliation, we want to make sure that it's further enhanced, and that it considers, y'all use a pooled cash account here, that instead of writing checks for the general fund, the gas fund, and the water fund, the sewer fund, there's one account and it just applies to everybody. And when in the normal process, things work fine, but if there's a slip up or there's an journal entry, you really have to make sure that follows through to every end. And so that process needs to be enhanced so that we're reconciling all three of those accounts to the control account, not just the control account. So that's something we've talked to management about, and I think they got a handle on what needs to be done, and we'll be working on that. Retirement contributions, this issue came up because I think it was in March or in April. They paid based on March. They duplicated a payment for March, and it wasn't caught. So we need to make sure that the systems and the controls, that we tie in those liabilities and make sure the payments are every month consistent to what the payroll system withholds. So that's something that can be done fairly easily. And lastly, we had a compliance issue, and in reviewing some of the past due accounts, we noticed that they weren't being cut off in accordance with the city's ordinance. So I think there's some maybe practice that is not consistent, and I think management wants to look at that and maybe propose a change to the ordinance. And if we don't get a change to the ordinance, make sure we're complying with that ordinance. So then lastly, on the horizon, these are things that are coming up. This has been kicked down the road a little bit, but I think next year we're going to have to deal with any leases that are in place. We have to do a new standard. We'll have to capitalize those, whether we're the lessor or the lessee. We've got to make that, we've got to treat that as a capital outlay type issue. Secondly, a subsequent event, y'all did receive $877,000 from the American Rescue Plan Act. That money probably will be spent in this, some of that money. And because y'all have the low-income housing, which is the federal program, which is about $500,000 a year. Once you get to spending $750,000 in federal money, you fall into a single audit, which will, it's just a little adder in that there's other procedures that have to be formed for that audit. We have to make sure that you're complying with those programs, and the controls are in place, and that you spend the money. So there will be, if you get to that 750, it's gonna trigger a single audit. So I just want you to be aware of that. The other thing, so it's been suspended for a couple of years due to COVID, but the legislative auditor requires statewide audit procedures, in which we gotta go in. There's 28 procedures that we do. We pull a sample of things and test them and report what we find. Well, they haven't had to do that, but next year you will have to redo all those procedures. So that's gonna be on the docket next year. And finally, everybody knows, but we did, the refunded bonds was done after year end, so that'll kind of change that, but that's the same interest, so that's a good thing that y'all done. So that's it in a nutshell. Hopefully I'll condense 90 pages to something manageable, but if there are any questions, we have to answer.
Ken, when you say we get federal monies received, when we get over 750,000, then it's a standalone audit strictly for that money?
It's combined.
Oh,
Years back, the limit, I'm going horse. The limit used to be 300,000.
okay.
Now, and every year you gotta have a single audit because low income housing was over that
Yes.
amount. They raised it to 750, so for, I can't remember, so many years, y'all have not had to have a single audit. Basically, it's just additional procedures. How, in this report, you have a GAO report saying that you comply with governmental auditing standards. You would have another report saying that you complied with single audit, A133 requirements. It's not major, but it is. It does. You gotta make sure you comply with all.
Yeah.
If you trigger that, you can be aware that there are restrictions and that you're complying with those restrictions and you're doing things in accordance with the requirements. Same with those ADPs, they need to be reviewing those ADPs and making sure when we test those, we're not gonna be finding a ton of stuff. Because those aren't geared to materiality. When we do the audit, we kind of look at what's material. These procedures don't have materiality. So if they say the expenditure limit is $100 and you spend $101, from an audit standpoint, I can say $1 isn't material, nobody would care. But if it's that procedure, I gotta say the limit was 100 and you spent 101.
With the utility department, the past due receivables with the compliance and that, you think with the cutoff, that's kind of due like to the pandemic?
I'm not sure what, I'm assuming so, and we did not find any where any money didn't pay. When we tested receivables is where we found that, and to our knowledge, everybody had paid up, so I think they was being sympathetic, but it's not in compliance with the ordinance. Yeah, and we need to make someone independent of her is looking at what she does, because she can make journal entries, she has access to the cash account, she writes checks. So, and that's her position, because y'all are a small office and you can't spread those out so much. Because of that, the mitigating control is that you have a little somebody, and y'all are part of that, y'all are looking monthly at stuff, so if you suspect something, it's up to you to say, hey, wait a minute, I don't know why is that there? And, at any time, if y'all have questions, y'all certainly can contact us and say, part of the planning process, we talk and try to get where are the issues, where would we be concerned if something would go wrong? And we try to look for those things, because you can't look at everything. It's $1 million. I can't look at everything, but we try to focus on where the problems might be.
So overall, we pretty good at the city is?
The city's in good sound financial position, I believe.
Not in a deficit or?
As I was telling the mayor, the only thing that is, if you go to page, 4, and you look at the business activities, you'll see that the fund balance is $4,179,000. That's a pretty strong position. Of that money, $4 million is tied up in fixed assets. And 900,000 is restricted. You had passed some ordinance to put some money away for I can't remember at this point, but the 900,000 is restricted. You can't just spend that. So that created an unrestricted deficit. Now, if you go up and look at that long-term liability, $3 million, that's mostly this pension actuarial liability. It's real, but you're not gonna have to pay that next year. So that creates that negative. So I should be aware of it, but I'm not, like I told the mayor, I'm not super scared of that. You wanna monitor it and it's going in the right direction. But I think if you look at other entities across the state, you're gonna see some similar things because of pension. I mean, that's a huge liability. You know, if you're on the news board, and I don't know what happens is when you hire an employee, they go and they say, well, when that employee retires, we're gonna have to pay their retirement. What do we need today as a liability to make sure that that person's gonna be there? And the actuaries figure that out, and it's a huge number. You know, so it's real. You're gonna have to pay that at some time, but it's not like you're gonna have to write a check tomorrow to pay it. So the cash flow is okay. You're not strapped for money or anything like that.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
And Ken, the large amount of journal entries that were made, those were from the ACH payments? Those journal entries?
A lot of these entries are things we do on a annual basis. Y'all primarily keep the books on a fund basis, or and really a cash basis for that matter. And we have to convert it to GAAP, and a lot of those are making this. But there were some issues this year, like the retirement payments that didn't get made in the right period and what have you. And when the journal entries were made, we had to go and figure out what happened. That's what created that cash variance that created the finding. The cash was there, it just wasn't accounted in the right fund and everything. Well, thank y'all.
Thank you.
Sorry we have to wait so long.
But you were thoroughly entertained.
Huh?
So you were thoroughly entertained.
They usually put me first, so I got to see all the action tonight. So.
Good action.
You got to see that we really concerned about where our money is going and services.
Well, it's encouraging that y'all are fighting for it.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. If y'all have any questions, let us know.
And thank you, Danny. Oh, what you did.
Thank y'all.
All right, then item 13.
Well,
12 on this one. Then item 12, request to move into executive session pursuant to the Louisiana Statute 102:17A4 to discuss status of investigative proceedings regarding allegations of misconduct.
Moved. Second.
I got a motion by Councilman Brown, second by Councilman Riviere. Any objections? Hearing none?
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Gordon,
Yes.
Mr. Hubble,
Yes.
Lacy,
Yes.
Mr. Riviere.
Yes.
Motion passes.